Hi, and you're now with the Forerunner Chronicles. A few weeks ago, in the month of October, wildfires, quote-unquote wildfires, swept through the state of California, destroying the lives of thousands of good old Americans. And these quote-unquote wildfires were syndicated non-stop on every public news network and every cable news station as well. But something as equally catastrophic, if not more, also took place in our nation's capital during that same week. Did you hear about it? It's going to affect millions of us. Let's find out what it is. A few weeks ago, did you know about the wildfires that took place in California?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
That was a terrible, horrific situation.
Yeah, I think so
People lose
too.
their homes.
Yeah, definitely. Now, during that same week in our nation's capital, they passed what's called the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Act of 2007. And basically what it is a thought crime prevention bill. And what violent radicalization is the promoting of any belief system that the government terms to be extremist agenda. They can term you to be a terrorist if you're promoting something that they decide is extremist agenda. What do you think about that?
I think that's terrible because I feel historically this country was built on people fighting in wars so that free speech can exist. So for the government to turn around and say you can't have your freedom of speech,
Right.
I think it's awful.
Ask you one more question then. How come you think it wasn't in the news? I mean, it was a big thing that's going to affect millions of us. How come they didn't put that in the news?
Obviously they wanted to hide it.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Did you hear about the fires that took place in California
Yes.
that were destroying many people's homes? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's a shame that they were having those fires out there. I just felt that the government went in there and supported them, and there were so many other things that happened in this country that the government was not behind.
Wow. Let me ask you another question. Do you know that during that same week, while all those fires were going on, that in our state's capital, in the House of Representatives, passed by 404 of the elected officials, they passed what's called the Violent Radicalization Homegrown Terrorism Act of 2007. And what that act ensures is that they can persecute you for thought crime. If you promote any belief system that the government terms as extremist agenda, they can call you a terrorist and lock you up and actually torture you.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
I didn't know that, no.
Why do you think that they wouldn't put something so massive as this in the general news so that everybody can know about it?
Because they wouldn't want everybody to know about it. How would you get an individual to come, you know, they can just single you out
Right.
and do whatever they want to you.
Now check this out. During that same week while all these fires were going on, in our nation's capital, they passed what's called the Violent Radicalization Homegrown Terrorism Act of 2007. All right. Now what violent radicalization is the promoting of any belief system that the government terms to be extremist agenda. So basically, say for instance, you taught that the United States government is wicked because it says that in the Bible. They can say that you're a terrorist. They can lock you up indefinitely and torture you because of that. It's a thought crime. Do you think that's
be infringing on freedom of speech?
Why do you think this wasn't in the news? Why do you think they didn't put it out there so everybody could know about it?
Because they put out what they want.
Were you aware of the fires that took place in California a few weeks ago? It was all over the news. You saw that, right? Do you know during that same week while all those fires were taking place in our nation's capital, in the House of Representatives, they passed what's called the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Act of 2007?
I can believe it.
Did you hear about that? And what violent radicalization is the promotion of any belief system that the government terms to be extremist agenda.
Okay.
So you can be called a terrorist if you say, I think 9/11 was bombs that brought down the building. Do you think that should be done? You think that's fair?
No, I don't think that.
Well, what if you have a belief system on the Bible that the government feels is radical according to their own standards, and that it's extreme agenda? They can actually call you a terrorist, lock you up, and torture you. How do you feel about that?
I would feel very wrong because the Bible is what brought this country to where it is supposed to be.
Do you think that's against your freedom of conscience? Because it's a thought crime prevention bill that they actually can criminalize your thoughts. Do you think that's fair?
No, it's not fair.
think that's against your First Amendment rights?
Yeah, you know they can't mess with your thoughts like that.
So you think they were trying to hide this from the public?
Oh, sure they were.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for your time. Yeah, what do you think about those wildfires?
It was sad. I heard a lot of people lost their homes and stuff.
It was all over the news, like non-stop.
Like a couple weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Do you know that during that same week in our nation's capital, they passed an act called the National Radicalization Homegrown Terrorism Act?
No, I did not.
And basically, what that act does is it actually makes people into terrorists who promote a belief system that the government terms to be extremist agenda. So in other words, you know who Ron Paul is, the guy running for president? If you would definitely promote Ron Paul because he believes in radical views like taking down the Federal Reserve and things like that, that they could actually term you a terrorist and put you in jail. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Like, for instance, if you were to say that you believe that the Twin Towers weren't really brought down by planes, they could say that you're promoting an extreme belief system and they could put you in jail for that. What do you think about that?
I don't like that idea.
You think that's against your freedom of conscience?
Yes, I do. I really think it's not freedom because I know I've seen many conspiracy theory movies that can make you think that the government had something to do with 9/11.
Right. So, why do you think they didn't put that in the news? I mean, they had all the fires going on. Why didn't they put that in there? It affects millions of us. How come you think they didn't put that in the news?
Because they did it to be sneaky.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
And how old are you?
17.
Wow.
When Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence,
That's right.
when George Washington and everybody else signed the
That's it.
the Constitution, they believed that you can think whatever you want to think. You can say whatever you want to say, but you cannot harm others in your actions.
All right. Why do you think they didn't put that in general news?
You want to know the honest to God
Yeah,
truth?
honest to God truth.
Honest to God truth.
Honest to God truth.
Because they thought that people react adversely to it, because the press is still propaganda.
Right. Do you think they picked an opportune moment with the whole California wildfires to push it?
Absolutely, because let's be honest.
Yes. Why don't you be honest for once? Instead of hiding behind the cover of fire, why don't you honestly tell the citizens of the United States of America that under Section 899D of the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Prevention Act, that institution that will be established called the Center of Excellence, which will be responsible for searching out every ideology and every motive of every religious and secular group in this country, is really just a politically correct title for the Center of the United States of America's Inquisition. Or why don't you be even a little bit more honest and tell the masses that under Section 899B of that very same act, the internet will be targeted for terrorist activity, and that obvious mention is made of live streaming radio stations which promote pro-constitutional teachings and patriotism. Or why don't you be even more brutally honest and tell the world that the majority of the elected officials in this country are initiates in satanic secret society cults which are co-conspirators with which are pawns of the Vatican to re-establish the Roman Catholic Church's long-lost preeminence in this globe. The Bible has already revealed your dishonesty in the book of Revelations chapter 13 and verse 12, where it speaks of the lamb-like beast, which is the United States of America, exercising all the power of the first beast before it, which is the Roman Catholic Church, the papacy, and causes all the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, the papacy, whose deadly wound was healed. Why don't you tell the people that this act has been set in place preparatory for the union of church and state in America to persecute those who will keep the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ, when the Vatican makes sure that Sunday legislation is mandatory in our country? For it is the mark of their church's authority, not of God's, for it can be found nowhere in this holy word. Why don't you let the people know that truth? And that there is no presidential candidate that can save their soul. The only person that they can turn to now is Jesus Christ. And whether we like it or not, whether you like it or not, the truth is the truth.